I want to bring in Senator Angus King, independent from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats. Senator, always good to see you. Good morning.
Chris, nice to see you this morning.
Before I get to the specifics, let me talk a little bit of the strategy that we've heard, which is the pen and the phone. And some Republicans like Rand Paul have already called this vaguely threatening to go around you and the rest of Congress, is the way they're framing it. How do you see it?
Well, you're not going to hear me agree with Rand Paul all that often, but I share some unease. I mean, it's all well and good to say, well, we agree with what the president's trying to do, therefore the ends justify the means. The problem is once power accretes to the president, it very rarely, if ever, goes away. And, you know, somebody may say, well, we like this president, but they may not like the next president who's doing things by executive order that they don't agree with. So I would much prefer working with Congress and understanding of the math of this place. You've got a Republican House, a Democratic Senate, with the Republicans having a lot of power because of the rules, a Democratic president. By definition, you can't do anything unless it has bipartisan support.
So how do you move that forward? We keep hearing that, Senator, and the president, out of frustration, has said on things like gun control, look, if 90% of the American people want something and Congress isn't going to give it to them, I'm going to do what I can within my constitutional powers. Well,
that last phrase you used is important, within my constitutional powers, and I think it's a question of, you know, how far we stretch that envelope. But there are things. We just got a budget. We got a bicameral, bipartisan budget for the first time in 4 years. Took a lot of give on both sides. Immigration reform did get through the Senate, and there's some discussion that it's going to get a little bit of mobility in the House. So there are these areas that we can work on. And I'm not saying, you know, he shouldn't use the executive order power. Of course he should. But, you know, let's be careful here that we don't create a situation and a momentum where, you know, Congress is sort of an afterthought. But there's plenty of areas that I think we can work together, and a little more outreach from the White House, I think, would be good. But the Congress, and particularly the Republicans of the House, have to understand that there are things the country wants us to do. This whole thing of let's give America a raise, I completely agree with. The problem with the economy right now is the middle class doesn't have enough money to spend. And the benefits of the economy over the last 4 or 5 years have almost all gone to the top. 400 people in America have as much wealth as the bottom half of the entire population.
Well, to that end, let me ask you, the president is supposed to lay out some priorities in the State of the Union, and I'd like you to go through them for me, kind of rapid fire. What are the chances that something gets done on this? And I think number one would be hiking the minimum wage.
I think there might be some movement on that. I think the public pressure is building up on that. All the polls show both a majority of Republicans and Democrats think that ought to happen. And all we're talking about is returning it to the purchasing power that it had when it was enacted at a little over $7, you know, years ago. So I think there may be something happening on that.
What about the immigration and possibility of immigration reform?
Well, we've got the Senate bill out there. The House is talking seriously about it. Speaker Boehner has been making positive noises. I think there's a reasonable shot that might happen.
And the final one, the Farm Bill.
The Farm Bill, the last I heard, we should see this week. So I was talking to people over the weekend. Almost all of the issues, those are the pregnant words, almost all the issues have been resolved. But I heard we're going to see it in the next few days.
Is there a most likely in your mind of those three?
Well, I think the most likely is the Farm Bill, and I think next most likely is some form of immigration reform. The hard nut on that is going to be a path to citizenship. I think the House will agree to some kind of legal status. I'm certainly strong for a path to citizenship. I think it's reasonable and ought to happen. And then the third is the minimum wage. I think all three could happen given the right circumstances and given the fact that everybody understands around here that nobody can do it by themselves.
Senator Angus King, always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much. Well, there's a lot from that interview to chew on. Heather, let me start with the